one station making history every day.
Chicago, Chicago.
Now, John Cass and Lauren Cohn.
89 WLS.
Lauren Cohn, John Cass, 89 WLS. We're taking your calls at 591-8900 and your text at 68683 on the front page of the Chicago Tribune, the world's greatest newspaper, and the one I work for, and I love it, is a terrible, sad, but beautifully written story by John Keelman about a young football player, Rob Camosa, who died at Rolling Meadows High School. He finally died after being paralyzed in a 1999 football injury.
Yeah, there was a drill. Some players tackled him. He went reeling over the sideline and into a metal post, and it fractured 2 vertebrae in his neck, paralyzed him from the neck down. So sad.
Last year, Rocky Clark, he was a running back. He played at Eisenhower High School. I played football at Richards. We were like sister schools. I didn't know the young man, but he was paralyzed and finally died. Years ago, there was a young football player trying out for the Hamilton Tiger Cats, the Canadian Football League. It was my Uncle Nick Kafalis. He had a head injury, went into a coma, and died. Here's my thing. Later on, we're going to have an expert from the Illinois High School Association to talk about head injuries. Kids are training now. 591-8900. It's time to end it. High school football in general, I don't know. Put them up on why don't you put children up on a seesaw, fill socks full of sand, and let them club each other in the head? Is that what you want?
Yeah, now we have these new guidelines that are going into effect, which it's great to have new guidelines. The question is, how do you know when you evaluate a kid? And basically, if you're in doubt, they're saying you sit the kid out. And this is from the American Academy of Neurology, John, that says that even the best tests for mild traumatic brain injury may detect only 4 out of 5 concussions.
I don't need a soccer versus high school football debate. I know that we're getting a text now from 630. John, you're wrong about football. If you ban football, then ban headers from soccer. No, that's not it. Soccer, I don't care what they say. Soccer headers are not the same thing. Football's designed, and I played it, and I loved it. You know what I loved about it? Smashing somebody, okay? Exploding right into them. And that's what it's designed for. It's designed to have that head on head. That's why you wear those hard helmets. And I think 591-8900, look, you like football, you want your kids to play football? Okay, I understand that. But at what cost? Brain injuries, and then we go cheer them. The NFL Combine, oh, wonderful, the Bears, Brian Urlacher, whoa. And then they end up shooting themselves in the heart. Why? Because they want their brains saved so that they can be studied. Phil Joliet.
Hey, good morning. How are you?
Let me hear it, Phil. Yes, you're on with Lauren Cohn and John Cass. Hey, buddy.
John, I like your comments. I agree with you. But my comment is this. Why shouldn't schools focus more on the education part instead of sports? You see more and more schools devoting more time toward the sports aspect instead of education. Wouldn't our students be better on the education route? Then they can pass these tests. You wouldn't have mayors coming out speaking about how their kids aren't meeting the mark as far as preparatory school exams.
I think we have a good program at when my sons play soccer for the varsity at Lyons Township High School. If you don't do well in school, you can't play. And then there's another thing called the John Cass rule. If you don't do well in school, you're not playing soccer.
Yeah, you got to keep your grades up.
Keep your grades up.
Parents need to
right, Phil?
address that.
I understand. I like your idea, of course, but you look at a lot of these public schools, most of these kids, they don't all have these C averages to play these sports. It's because their athletic ability that they're playing these sports, not because of their educational ability.
Well, then they should be.
And I think that's the flip side. They need to turn that around.
Yeah, because we don't have, we shouldn't have slaves for sports. So that
and that's pretty much what we have. Because
right, so paunchy suburban white people can watch kids in the ghetto destroy themselves for your benefit.
Right,
then
I hate that.
Then they could go on the sports talk show and say, hey, that guy doesn't have any guts. Really? I never, Okay, Phil, thanks for the call. Lauren, here's a text from 630. John, you are an idiot. Okay, thanks, 630. That's good. I really like that one.
Let's see what John from Homer Glen has to say about this.
John, Homer Glen.
Hello, how you doing?
You're here, buddy.
Thank you very much for taking the call. I got your message on the radio, and you were saying, you should ban high school football. And, I think that was kind of wrong, number one. But then I'm thinking about my kid when he was in high school, and I went to an exercise or a workout or whatever they do, and they were doing stuff. Now, I was in the military. I'm a Vietnam vet and all that, but that has nothing to do with it.
Okay.
But I looked at that and I says, are you out of your mind? You're going to hurt somebody. They were doing bad things with their necks and stuff, and it freaked me out. It really did. And I said, somebody's going to get hurt. Now, I know the coaches know what they're doing.
Sure they do.
And
they're good people.
So to speak. Now, how much is that coach trained to do that? And do you want your kid doing it? I think the people who have their kids in high school football go look at these training things.
Okay,
not
John.
just running around the track. I'm talking about the bending and the neck and the spine. And I says, oh, my God.
Okay, John. Thank you for your call. We're going to check with other people now. Let's see. We have Al in Bridgeview. Al. Quickly.
Hey, John, my sympathy for your loss. We certainly would all share in your grief.
Well, Al, my parents let me play football for Richards after my uncle died because they knew that I had to play or I would have gone on the bad route. And I played for Gary Cohornan at Richards. It was great. Great coaches, intense training, and what it did was help me become, the person I am today. But the head injuries, man, come on.
Yeah, but, my lady friend works for a neurologist, and, he says something interesting that motorcycle helmets, the only benefit to them is a good-looking corpse. You'd have to ban skiing. Young kids could not go on a ski slope. Young kids could not ride on the back of a motorcycle.
Why?
Young kids could not skateboard. There's so many activities you would have to eliminate because, truthfully, the brain is very vulnerable. It's floating in the middle of your head.
Yeah.
I played football. I'm a pretty large guy. I'm about the size of Urlacher and about 40 pounds heavier. And believe me, when I hit you, you stayed hit.
Yeah, but Al, look, we can't have the lawyers run everything. I don't know. Thanks,
well,
Al.
they do.
I mean, you can't say skiing and all that. Look, the question's simple. Football. Do you smash your heads together or not? That's what you do in football. Soccer, you play with your feet. There's collision. Basketball, there's collision. Hockey, there's collision. But in soccer, in football, head on head. I don't know what else to tell you. Lauren?
We'll be back after this.
Okay, back after this. John Cass, Lauren Cohn. Sorry, Lauren, I got a little passionate
That's
when I was
okay.
talking about that.
We're talking about the new guidelines this morning that have just come out and how parents, whatever your kid plays, whether it's football, soccer, or whatever the sport is, we've got these new guidelines in place. We're trying to sort of figure them out and how do you really know? And so on the line is Kurt Gibson, who's the Associate Executive Director of IHSA, to join us and break it down for us. Hi, Kurt.
Good morning, Lauren and John. Thanks for having me.
So tell us about the guy. Now, my guys play for Lyons Township High School Soccer, and Paul Labato, their great coach, has a baseline test for them at the beginning of the year. Is that how you're basically dealing with it, or are there new guidelines coming in?
Well, we've said, John, to anybody, to any school that's wanted to implement some kind of baseline testing, that certainly we support anybody that has the resources to do that. But doing some kind of baseline testing is not a requirement at this time within the association. And our Sports Medicine Advisory Committee's talked about, whether or not that should be or shouldn't be, and to date they've not gotten to a point where they've said that that's something that everyone should be required to do. All of our schools, as you guys can imagine, have different levels of resources, and the current feeling is that our schools are, by making information available to their parents and to kids and to coaches, that's really the best and first line of defense in some cases and in some communities. So baseline testing is not a requirement, although, like at your school, if it's happening, or your son's school, rather, if it's happening, we we certainly support that.
And how does the training work? I mean, kids get injured all the time. They fall down. They might get dizzy or knocked out. How do you know when to keep a kid out or when to have him go through some kind of testing?
Yeah, well, generally we would say when in doubt, sit them out. The requirements that we have in place really pertain to our contests, and when there are now national playing rules for high school sports in all sports, rather, that would say that if players displaying signs, symptoms, or behaviors indicative of a possible concussion, they should be removed from that contest and not re-entered into that contest unless they've been cleared by an appropriate healthcare professional. So even at the rule-based level, there's the intent there is if someone is acting out of sorts, so to speak, they should be removed and be evaluated. And in Illinois, we've said that evaluation either needs to be from a licensed physician or a certified athletic trainer, and if one of those groups of people can clear an athlete to return, then he or she could go back into that contest. But if there's nobody that can clear them, or if one of those groups doesn't at that particular contest, then the athlete's done until they're again evaluated following the game by a physician.
So if you get like what we used to call a dinger when we played, right, and the sun blots up all the light, and then it relaxes again, you can see sort of, and your teammates are like, man, stay in this game, right? And then you just keep your mouth shut and everyone pretends it didn't happen, and you keep playing, right?
Yeah, that's one of the challenges, and that's one of the things that I know our schools are doing a good job with is coaching up their players in all sports to avoid having that type of warrior mentality that would say, hey, fight through this or play through this or don't say anything. Because I think coaches and kids are starting to realize, players are starting to realize that, the long-term impact on a team might be even more negative. If somebody doesn't report an injury and then they get hurt later, they could be out for a longer period of time than if it's dealt with when things are occurring. So I think our anecdotal records and contacts with our schools would indicate that coaches are doing a great job in emphasizing to their players that, hey, if something happens now, you need, even if that means you got to tell us about a teammate, it's better for us to do this now.
Do you see, and we only got a couple seconds left, but do you see high school football surviving over 10 years with all the lawyers building class action suits?
I do.
You do? Okay. Thanks, Kurt Gibson, Associate Director of the Illinois State High School Athletic Association, a great institution. John Cass, Lauren Cohn. We're going to be back after this.
89 WLS. When you want Chicago's classic hits, turn to 94.7 WLS. For traffic and weather info, tune into 890 AM WLS for traffic and weather first on the fives when you need it most.
You know what I've learned, Lauren Cohn?
What have you learned?
Since I said let's ban football in high school and not cheer children from destroying their lives and their brains, I'm stupid. I can't talk. I'm self-righteous. I'm a jerk. Okay? It's amazing what I'm hearing, and that's okay. But I'd like to hear what Jim from West Lafayette, Indiana, has to say. Jim, I'm sure you played football, too.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
When I played football in high school, we had leather helmets and no face masks, and we had no head injuries that I remember. When I got to college, we had hard helmets with face masks, and we were taught to lead with our head and slide off to a shoulder. And now we have head injuries. I think we need to go back to leather helmets or no helmets, and we solve the problem.
I've always been for that, and I thank you, Jim. Reasonable, responsible human being. Lauren, we can't cheer. If you cheer people smashing their heads together, then why don't you just let your kids be MMA fighters? Let's go in the ring and get knocked around with a kick right to the head.
I don't know why we don't have rugby more in this country.
Rugby has less head injuries, because they're not leading with their heads.
They had rugby at the University of Vermont. They didn't have a football team because I went there my first year of college.
Well, I've been accused of doing this because I want soccer to improve. But if you're 6'8" and 330 pounds, you're not going to be able to play soccer. So, I'm just trying to save these kids. And anyway, what do we got coming up, Laura?
Coming up, John, when you go to get yourself some fast food or some junk food, does having calories up there deter you from getting that food, or would a traffic sign make a difference? What do you think?
Like a belly sign, like John's big gut, like
plus, a red alert,
or
is it gonna make you stop and back away from the counter if there's the number? Hey, this is 1,000 calories versus a big flashing red light.
Well, I don't know. I took Lauren Cohn to one of my favorite places yesterday.
That was good, the Greek Islands.
We went to the Greek Islands with Professor Schnookums, and I had her had one of the sardellas. Awesome, from Italiani.
Va bene, I say in Italian because I don't know how to say it in Greek.
But they didn't have any. They just kept bringing the bread, though, because that sauce is awesome. What can I say?
I had a great shish kebab. Somebody asked me on my Facebook page what I had. I had a great vegetable and shrimp shish kebab.
Yeah, that's
really
right.
Good.
It's
little
the beginning
olive oil.
89 WLS.